Welcome to the Blooming League of Original Podcasts.
Hello and welcome to Talk Musicals to Me, a new theatre podcast about musicals and their impact on people. My name is Caroline Sheen and I'm here to quiz some of the leading creatives in the entertainment industry about their relationship with musical theatre and how certain musicals may have influenced their lives in ways you may not even expect. From how they first encountered a musical to musicals they may never even have seen, let's dive in and introduce today's guest to open up and talk musicals to me. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce the incredible Debbie Isitt to the podcast. Debbie is a British writer, director, producer and composer of theatre, film and television. I think I can probably say she is most well known for the comedy Christmas movie Nativity and its numerous spin-offs. Seriously, is anyone's Christmas complete without watching at least one of those films? Whenever I watch Debbie Isitt's work, it's always hilariously funny, but with such a huge amount of heart and love. It really makes the world feel like a happier place. Nativity was made into a stage musical with massively successful runs in London and around the country. And last year, the tour of the Stock Aitken and Waterman vehicle I Should Be So Lucky, which featured a holographic Kylie Minogue, played to audiences around the country as well. Although known mainly for her film and now musical work, Debbie's background was in writing and performing and directing theatre for the first few years of her career. I've worked with her and I love her honesty, her wit, her passion for theatre so much. I can't wait to talk to her today. I am going to ask the wonderful Debbie Isitt to talk musicals to me. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, Caroline, and thank you for that very warm and wonderful welcome. Amazing. I didn't know all of that about myself. Amazing. Thank you, my sweet.
It's quite incredible, the kind of one-man band that you are. I know Nikki, your husband, works with you alongside you with all this, but the fact that you do direct, write, compose and produce is amazing, especially for a woman, especially in this day and age. I think even now, you know, it's difficult for women to make their mark in the industry, and you are quite the pioneer, and it's amazing to be chatting to you.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. I think I was always inspired by Joan Littlewood's journey, to be honest. You know, she was a great influence on me when I was training, when I was very young. And just the fact that she was able to pull together a theatre company and work outside of normal processes and do her own thing, I found that quite inspirational, yeah.
Oh, fabulous. It's the outliers, aren't they, that you can follow, and the people that stick their head above the parapet and you go, oh, I see you, I'll follow you, and you've done it, so I can do it. I think I feel a little bit like that as well, because I grew up in South Wales and felt like the West End was such a far away thing for me.
Yeah.
But I saw people ahead of me going to drama college and having a career, and I thought, oh, well, if they can do it, I can do it. So that path opens up. And you're doing that for people as well. Are you aware of people like that say, you're an inspiration to me, I'm gonna sort of, are you mentoring people as well, Deb?
Yeah, I do. I think it is important to, you know, be visible and to be encouraging to others and share your story, which is why platforms like this are so important. It's for other people to listen to or watch and think, well, she sounds pretty normal. You know, I maybe I can, you know, have a chance. Anyone can do anything if they want to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Debbie, this podcast is a little bit different to other podcasts we may have done in that I want to talk about your work, but in a way as to find out what other works have inspired your work in the world of musical theatre and film and TV as well, but basically rooted in what experiences you've had in the musical theatre industry as a musical theatre goer and creative and everything. So, shall we jump in?
Yes, let's do it.
Lovely. So, question 1. How did you and musical theatre first meet?
I grew up watching lots of musical films, the old MGM musicals, with my mum. So I was always taken with the form. But when I was 9 years old, I was lucky enough to go to Birmingham Rep because my aunts were all front of house there. They were usherettes. And I was able to watch The Wizard of Oz, the musical, one Christmas when I was 9 years old, about 17 times because I didn't have to pay and I was allowed to sit on the steps. So I watched this musical over and over and over again. I was so enthralled with it that I decided I had to put it on. So I went to school after Christmas holiday and begged the teacher, please, can I put this musical on that I've seen at Birmingham, The Wizard of Oz? And they said, well, we'll talk to the staff and see, and came back to me and said that, yes, I could if I felt able. So I'd memorized most of the script, certainly the songs. I cast my poor friends and cousins and sisters, everyone who was at primary school with me, and asked aunties and my mum and a few other mums to make the costumes, which they did. Cast myself, can you believe it, as Dorothy? What a shock. And put the thing on one morning for parents and teachers and the whole school. And I have to say, in my mind, in my memory, it was absolutely marvellous. Now, let me just say this, Caroline, I'm not a singer. I mean, to this day, I'm not a singer. So I don't know how I ever even did that. But it was writing, directing and acting in my first musical. And that was it. Forever. That's all I ever wanted to do.
Oh, Debbie, that has just made my day. The 9-year-old absolute legend, Debbie Isitt, just basically starting out as she means to go on and just putting on your whole own show. That's absolutely superb. Were the adults overseeing you, or did you just have absolute reign over this?
No one came near us. Like it was every playtime, every lunchtime, it was after school. There was no adults involved at all. I think everyone was kind of a bit shocked, and I can't tell you how it was, because I was in it and I don't really know, but I know that it was, for me, hugely impactful, and I knew from that moment that that was my dream. That's all.
That is absolutely brilliant. I just love the fact that there were these teachers letting you do this, and probably just, in the staff room having a cigarette, go, it's all right, Debbie's in charge, she's sorting it all out. And 'twas ever thus, ever since.
I think so.
Absolutely brilliant. So where did you go next after that? Did your triumph lead on to another production?
Well, in a way, because I then became the queen of talent shows. So, we would do renditions of Mamma Mia, and not the show, but the song. And I just put groups together and dances and songs and for the talent shows throughout school. And then as I went into secondary school, high school, I continued to perform in school plays and things like that. But it was my dream to do it. But I still, by the time I was 16 years old, I never thought it was a dream that was possible. Really, it was a dream.
Yeah.
It was never going to be a reality for me.
Further back, when you were sitting on the steps of the Birmingham Rep watching Wizard of Oz 17 times, did you get to know the cast? Were you like their little... No, just literally at this distance.
Oh, yes. No, I never went backstage or anything like that. I just absorbed it like a sponge. It sort of was in me. So I knew the choreography, like I knew everything because I'd watched it so many times, but it was in me. So it wasn't my original work.
Yes.
It was heavily plagiarized, but I, represented it. And, we were all 8, 9, 10. It was super fun. I know that.
I'm really glad you didn't get any cease and desist letters from the Birmingham Rep. We found out what you're doing. Can you please put an end to it?
Imagine.
Well, this has kind of answered my next question as well. But what was the first musical you were then personally involved with? I'm guessing later on, like you said, this dream kind of felt like it wasn't a reality for you. So where did the next sort of musical theatre influence come from?
Well, I think because I wasn't a singer, I did dance through my childhood and teenage years, but I wasn't a singer. I trained as an actor, and I felt that would probably be my profession eventually. But I always longed to do musical theatre. I just didn't think it was for me because I didn't have that musicality, or I thought as much. So professionally, Nativity the Musical was my first encounter with musical theatre. I mean, I'd done a part in Carousel at college, at drama school, which I adored, but I just wanted someone else's voice. I wanted your voice. I didn't know you then, but because I think had I had that voice, that would have been me. I would have loved nothing more than to be in musical theatre. So I had to wait a long time to encounter it professionally. But of course, I was doing theatre and film and using music a lot in the work.
Yeah.
But I wasn't actually doing a fully fledged musical until 2017.
In Confetti as well, there are musical numbers, aren't there? You always use music in your film work.
Yes, absolutely.
And they're always like pastiching other musicals or other songs, which are really clever. Where do you find that inspiration from?
Yes, I think certainly for Nativity, it was about trying to communicate to the audience a kind of style that they would enjoy. So obviously, music that really captures young people's hearts and minds and imaginations are influence, and pop songs and High School Musical and just knowing what children love. It was just sort of trying to get into that world, really, to create the songs. I'm a sponge. So, obviously all of those Busby Berkeley movies that I watched as a child, they came into play in Confetti, the movie, when they had the musical wedding, that couple. So that was a very Busby Berkeley influenced sequence. And as I say, all those Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly MGM movies, it's all in me. So it's kind of, what kind of music does this need? And I think I could probably come up with a song in any musical genre because they're in me, so I know them all and I can create a new one in the style of.
I love that. And I think when you have had a background of watching the MGMs, like the Fred Astaires and Gene Kellys, then you watch your movies, you see it. And I really enjoy indulging my musical theatre geek when I watch them. Like, oh, I know what that is. I'm very proud of myself recognizing it all. I also wonder whether my third question has already been answered, but it might not have been. Maybe we'll go, if it has been, let's go to the next second most. But which musical have you seen the most?
Well, I mean, you would think it would be The Wizard of Oz, having said what I've said 17 times. But obviously, I've seen Nativity the musical about 150 times, because that's the thing about me. When I make something, I watch it all the time because I like to keep its quality high. So I'm one of those directors that comes to see my own shows and keeps note giving and changes things and adapts things and tries to improve it. I think it's never over till the last performance. So I never say, oh, that's done, I'll go home now. I'm constantly working on it, slightly obsessively, probably.
I do really respect that as well, because as an actor, when you have your opening night in a show, typically the creative team then leaves and you're left to carry on working on their show. And you do feel a bit like the rug has been pulled out from under you. Just to explain a bit to people listening, when you work on a Debbie Isitt show, there is no script on the whole, usually. You have a framework of what the show needs to be. You have story points you need to hit. In general, it's not always written down on a piece of paper for you. It's a living and breathing organism, and it changes. Also, the fact that you're there watching it and making sure it changes in the right way or doesn't change too much is super helpful to the people on the stage. And also you feel like you're getting looked after as an actor rather than just being left to your own devices, which, in the case of most actors is a dangerous thing.
You said it. Yeah, I mean, exactly. And I mean, I've been on the front line as an actor and I know how isolating that can be, and the responsibility, the weight of responsibility on your shoulders, especially when you're selling out to big houses, and the ticket prices are expensive, to sort of be left alone and crossing your fingers. As talented as most of these performers are, it's really about the support, and it's hard work. 8 shows a week is hard labor. And I think that is really important, actually, to keep the support going for the performers, because they're what counts. I mean, that's the transaction, audience and actor. That's who we're there to see. And their actors are interpreting the author's intentions. And so although my work is largely improvised, I am the author of it. And I do intend for the audience to laugh at that moment, cry at that moment, gasp at that moment. And these moments have to hit, and they have to hit properly. So I need to be sure that it's working as well as it can be. And if it isn't, that I know what to do to change it, and I can go and talk to the actors afterwards and ask, could you try this? Or I feel like you've now, become this instead of what we said, and so yeah, I think it is important to keep the work and the standards high. It is live theatre, and it's never going to be the same twice, is it? Which is the beauty of it, but it still needs to be excellent.
Exactly. I also think, especially with a comedy, the beats and the rhythm always have to be so specifically placed that if they do then grow, or people find a laugh in a different scene or on a different line, and then suddenly the other laugh isn't landing because the audience have laughed at that one, so it's not as funny. Things like that are so important. And that support from you is, on my part, always massively welcome. But it's also something you don't just do for your show. You go and you support your actors and your friends in so many different shows. You've been to see me do loads of things. You're always putting on Instagram. I've been to see Oliver, Simon Lipkin, everything. You're such a support of your industry workers and co-workers and colleagues. And it doesn't go unnoticed. I think that's quite rare in our industry, to have somebody that if we invite you to something, you come. And sometimes even if we don't, we're just like, oh, I'll come and see that. You're such a support. I hope you know that it's massively appreciated.
Honestly, that's so moving to me. Thank you. I think that's just such a lovely thing to say. I mean, the reason I support you all is because I am in awe, quite honestly, of your talent and your work ethic. And, as I said, I want to be you, all of you. It's an absolute pleasure to do so. You're incredible performers. And, because I worked in film for such a long period after I left theatre in a way, I'd sort of lost sight of what it takes to perform in a live show, because filmmaking is so different and acting in film is so different. And when I went back to theatre for Nativity the musical, even in the audition process, I was knocked out by the talent and the tenacity and the attitude and the gung-ho-ness and the play is the thing attitude of the actors that you sometimes don't get in film acting. Sometimes it's I am the thing, not the play. There's a lot of ego and there's a lot of baggage. Whereas, we're so blessed in this industry to have these amazing performers who train so hard and work so hard. And if I ever get on my soapbox, it is about how terrible I think sometimes performers are treated in this profession, as if they're dispensable, as if they're disposable, as if there's another one around the corner, so it doesn't really matter how we treat them. No, there's no other Caroline Sheen. There's no other Simon Lipkin. These people are fantastic, and we should be full of appreciation and always go and see their work, because it's going to feed you. It's going to feed your soul.
Oh, I love that, Debbie. It's really lovely to see that you see that in people. And I always find it interesting when people outside of the musical theatre industry come into our world, like when Nicole Scherzinger doing Sunset Boulevard, there's a clip of her on some sort of Instagram viral video of her talking about the people in the show and just saying, how knocked out she was by their work ethic, by how hard we work, how long the hours are, the amount of your life that it takes. And I think when people have found success in different areas and they come in, they're like, whoa, this is amazing. I think sometimes because our industry, that the work that we put out is something that quite often appeals to the huge masses of the general public, that because it's so wide reaching. Oh, who's that?
Bear the Chihuahua, who sounds like a rock band.
Oh my goodness, he does sound like a rock. Hey, Bear, puppy.
Come here. Can I go and get him?
Yeah, go. Oh, bless Bear.
If I hold him, he might. This is Bear.
Hey, there he is. Oh my God. So I think I was saying it's really interesting when you see people from, that have had huge success in other areas, like, Nicole Scherzinger in the pop world and dance world and people in film. And I remember I did a play years ago, but they put quite a lot of musical theatre people in it because they put some music in it and they had some dance numbers and things like that. And the people in it who were the straight actors came in one day, and the dancers had been called in half an hour early to restage a number, and they totally changed the number. Like, the whole thing it wasn't on a staircase and now it was on a staircase, and all these changes had happened. And the people that primarily do plays were gobsmacked by how quickly the dancers had learnt this new routine, and the respect of everybody in the room room went up massively that day, which was really lovely to see, you know. So thank you for celebrating us. I love that. And you were saying, you know, you like musicals that make you laugh and make you cry. Which ones make you laugh and cry the most from your experience of like theatre going? Because I mean, I laugh and cry at Nativity, but you know me, I'm always a mess when I watch that.
Yes, I think that is the main thing about Nativity. You're always going to get laughter and tears. And for me, I love that too. I love that emotional roller coaster experience in any musical. And I mean, I'm a great fan of new work, as you know, because I create new work, but I also really admire new work, and I try and see that a lot. So, you know, some of the things that have made me laugh and cry, like Come From Away, for example, which had such brilliant humour in it, but obviously was also devastating at times. And, you know, I love things like that. I think one of the things Nikki and I laughed out loud at the most has to be Book of Mormon, even though it's totally outrageous. It was beyond funny, you know, and you don't laugh out, belly laugh very often in the theatre, you know, to that degree. So it was really, really funny. And of course, my mum's favourite musical, Les Mis, when she took me to see that, well, I was in floods of tears and I couldn't quite get over it. Yeah, I just think emotion is everything, you know. So if you're feeling things, it's working and it's meaningful. So many wonderful musicals, you know, do that to me and to everyone, which is why they're so popular.
The Les Mis thing for me, I remember I got obsessed with it when I was a sort of a late teenager, and my mum and dad got me tickets to see it. I think it was maybe the second time I'd seen it, and my mum had to hold on to, like, sort of push herself against the row in front and the row that she was sitting in, because I was crying so much that the row was shaking. And she was...
Oh, Caroline, that's so sweet. I have a Les Mis story too, that my mum, the first time she went to see it, when the little boy gets shot, no spoilers, she stood up in the theatre and went, no! And the whole theatre looked at her because she was so engrossed in it. But that's the power of theatre.
I love that. I love that sometimes theatre pushes the audience to respond verbally.
Yeah.
And I kind of love that it's always people's mums that do it.
Yeah, it's funny that.
Oh, that's fabulous. And Book of Mormon, I mean, I've only seen it once and I howled with laughter. And there's something about it. I mean, is this something you have to bear in mind when you're creating? Is that sometimes I think you can get tired of laughing and it has to be rationed throughout the course of the show. Is that something that you're aware of, or is that something I'm literally just making up?
It's an interesting theory. That you mean it wears the audience out?
Yeah.
If they laugh too much?
I know when I went to see The Producers and I thought it was hilarious, but by Act 2, I was tired of laughing so much. Still brilliant, but I was knackered.
Well, maybe there is something in that, because I do think Act 1 of Book of Mormon is, I favour it to Act 2. And so maybe there is something in that. And then there are also things that, like Play That Goes Wrong, which I know isn't a musical, but, you know, that it creeps up on you, the laughter, and it then becomes contagious. And it's by the end, you're absolutely rolling around, but it takes a while to warm up. And you can be quite irritated at first by the laughter. Like, why are they all laughing so much? It's not that funny. And then suddenly you get it, you know, and that's great. I mean, I think this idea of playing the audience like a composition, in a way, is what I always aim to do. So you're sort of writing your laugh, as I say, your gasp, you know, your rest moment, your cry moment, and you're building it. And you can sort of write the graph of those emotions out, so that hopefully you're not doing that. You're not tiring of you know, there's lots of laughter in it, but there's also other things too that come from the story. And it all comes from the story, doesn't it? It comes from the characters and the truth of the storytelling. And there's nothing better, I think, when you're laughing and then you suddenly cry and you don't even know why you're crying, but suddenly you feel so emotional, because laughter earns you the emotional depth of feeling, and laughter is a great way in to more serious emotions and more serious subjects. You know, it's also great in and of itself as a healing, powerful thing. But actually, I find in my work that laughter is the way in to the nitty-gritty emotional intensity of life. You know, and as we know, life, you do laugh and cry at life, you know, in equal measure. So it's a reflection of the truth of the world we live in, really.
With what you just said, there is no better example example of that than the show you talked about, Come From Away, you know, that has such emotional depth and such huge scope, and yet is so personal and so funny. And I went to see it a couple of times on tour because I had a dear friend in it. And each time you see it, you find new things to get emotional about or to find funny. It's very dense. And I think that's when you're playing real humans, you then automatically have this connection to truth.
Yes.
And I think that's where like improvisation, like that you do so much of, really helps, because you have to stay real but funny, but not caricature and not, what's the word, not obvious, you know?
Yes, I think that's right. I think the improvisation really helps the sort of ownership of the character, and it makes it closer to you. That's what it does. So therefore your emotions are more raw, because you're not thinking, well, what would this character do? You're thinking, what do I feel? You know, it's much more immediate when you're improvising. You don't have that time to consider, you know, what someone else might feel or think or do. You just think instinctively, I feel this, I'm going to do that. So it's much more visceral in a way, and therefore more truthful in performance. And I think it's an interesting point that you make about real life characters and real life story. That responsibility is so much greater, I think, to represent authentically. And I suppose my task as a fictional creator is to say, these are real people. I mean, it's not based on anyone particular, but this is a real person somewhere. They're going to be on row C or row F, and they're watching, and they know if you're cheating them, because they exist. This character exists for real, for sure. And you need just as much responsibility to present them authentically as you would if he was coming to watch From the Wings tonight.
You're giving me goosebumps, Debbie. I'm absolutely loving this. That idea that somebody out there is absolutely connecting with one of the characters on stage, or all of them, or, you know, a group. Because, you know, when you are that audience member, you feel it, you know?
Of course.
Next question. My guilty confession question, because I have never seen a professional production of West Side Story, which I think for somebody...
I was surprised. I'm surprised to hear that, Caroline.
Terrible, isn't it? Especially someone that's got to my age and in this business, and I've never seen it. Awful. I've seen the movies and I've seen amateur productions, but never seen it done professionally. And I regret that. Is there a musical out there that you haven't seen yet, or that you regret not having seen when it was on?
There's millions of musicals I haven't seen, you know, and there's so many, aren't there, that it's so hard to keep up. One could go watch a musical every night of the week, it seems, all year round. So yeah, I'm constantly feeling like, oh damn, I missed it. I really wanted to see that. But I think in sort of legit terms, I think the musical I did want to see professionally, because I was in it at college and because the film is so dear to me, is Carousel. I've never seen a professional production of Carousel, and I think I would love it because I love the music, I love the story, and I can just imagine it on stage. In fact, I'd love to direct a production of Carousel, to be fair, but it's something I'd love to see. Yes, that's the one that got away really so far.
The one that they say was kind of seminal out of the revivals was the Nick Heitner one at the National, which I didn't see either.
And if Guys and Dolls, his recent Guys and Dolls Abridged, is anything to go by, it will have been phenomenal. So yes, damn it, didn't see that. Nick, get it back on.
Shall we do that? Shall we petition him for a revival of that?
Why not?
I mean, that would be great at the Bridge, wouldn't it? Because I have a feeling in my head, I feel like there was a globe in it at some point, and if you put that in the middle of the stage and the carousel is there and you're all, look, it's all happening in my head.
Immersive and wonderful. Exactly. Yeah, brilliant. And there's exciting stuff coming, isn't there? Because Into the Woods is happening soon, which will be brilliant. You know, I saw that in Regent's Park and loved that production too, but that would be exciting that he's doing that.
I love this new kind of take on musicals, which are, let's do a revival of something that people know and love, but let's put it in this theatre where you can be massively immersed in it. You know, that Guys and Dolls, I felt like I'd been to New York for the night.
Absolutely. It was so fun.
Yeah.
It's so fun to be shuffled around, pushed by stage management, pulled by an ASM. It was great. I loved it. Get out the way. You're going to get trampled on.
Come to the theatre and be pushed around.
I loved it. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
It's a nice way to look at a musical, isn't it? To go, oh, which ones would work in that? And there are some that I think absolutely wouldn't. but some that absolutely would. And I think with Carousel, it's one of those wonderful stories that just is about this love and this conflicted love and this world, very small world that they live in, but all of it then being absolutely blown up by looking at it from heaven, you know.
Yeah.
There is so much scope there for like inventive direction and design. And when you did it in college, what did you do in it in college, Deb?
Do you know what? Very little. I was just enthralled by it, you know. As I say, I love the music. I mean, My Boy Bill has got to be one of the most amazing moments in musical theatre history, and on film too. It just, I don't know, it's just absolutely marvellous. And I think the grief in that is really, really important to me as well. And I can't listen to Never Walk Alone without crying. I just can't, because of that story and because of how moving it is. So it's less about me being in it now. I've given up that dream. It's more about really wanting to experience it again, you know, in live theatre version. Yes, come on, Nick. Do it.
Can you imagine being sat in the theatre not knowing what you were going to see? Before Carousel was this sort of known entity that if you are a theatre goer, you sort of know the tunes and a few of the songs. And if you've been to Liverpool Football Club, you absolutely know one of them very well. That audience that first year going to watch it in America on Broadway, not knowing what they were going to get, must have been so intense.
Astonishing. And then that's the beauty of new work, isn't it? You know, who knows in years to come what we'll be looking back on as we do on Carousel. You know, what of the new contemporary works will last the distance and people will look back and go, imagine that audience. And we are that audience now, you know. And that's why when I go in to see new work, I'm so excited, because I think I don't actually know very much about this and what's it going to be like, you know. And that's a very exciting thing. Or when you're a child or a young person, like going to Oliver the other week, and there were children sitting in front of me, and I thought, I remember being you. I remember being your age, and I know Oliver now really, really well, but I bet you don't. I bet you've never even seen the film, you know. And here we go. And they were just in raptures, you know. And how exciting is that moment when you don't know what you're going to see? So exciting.
I'm going to do a bonus special Debbie Isitt question now. In 50 years' time, what musical that is around now, that's new now, do you think people will be looking back on, and with that outlook?
For me, I'm going to say the musical that really got my heart last year, which was Standing at the Sky's Edge. I just fell in love with it. And I went to see it a few times, which is not something I would normally do. I just think the way it was put together, Richard Hawley's songs and music, Chris Bush's amazing book, the performers, the whole thing, it just got me. And it got me in a Carousel got me way. It was epic. It was important. It was funny. It was sad. It was political. It was entertaining. It was fabulous, fabulous theatre. And I loved it, and I hope it gets another big go, and I hope it tours, and I hope it lasts forever.
I agree. I thought that was such an exciting experience at the theatre. You know, the goosebumps from the singing, from the story, the staging, that sort of mad riot that they had at the end of, I think it was at the end of Act One.
It was.
When they just threw everything. Just the energy off that stage was, you know, it made you sit back in your seat. Oh, I would love that to be something people are still talking about in 50 years' time. Debbie, let's have a little quick break and come back for part 2 of Talk Musicals to Me.
G'day listeners, another show you can find on the Bloop network is Thrash and Treasure, where legendary artists from Broadway, West End, Hollywood and beyond deep dive into 2 seemingly opposite genres of music, heavy metal and musical theatre. From Tony winners to reality TV contestants, hear a vast range of iconic guests learn about genres of music they've never been exposed to. With over 130 episodes, there's bound to be a silly, sassy and insightful conversation that'll have you reaching for the leather pants and hairspray. And here is a sneak peek. Right, we're back with Thrash and Treasure. I'm Aaron, that's Steve, and we're having the time of our lives with legendary director Lonnie Price.
Hello.
You've spent a lot of time in a lot of theatres. So have you ever seen... Oh, no, that's your question. Sorry, Steve.
You've spent a lot of time in theaters, so have you ever seen a theater ghost?
Ooh.
Oh, wow. What a cool question, Steve. Yeah, I think I have. I don't know if you see them, but I think you feel them for sure. Yeah, I think that certain theaters have a kind of mystical kind of quality. I do. I think almost all theaters have ghosts. I do.
Very cool.
No stories of walking in and sort of something falling off or...
Oh, you mean like sandbags falling on people's heads and stuff like that?
anything. No one needs to get hurt, but if they do, bonus points.
Yeah. I think sometimes there's air that seems to circulate from nowhere. There's like a breeze or something, or power goes out or dims for a second. I don't know. I think that there's, you can attribute all of that to the ghosts, or and dressing rooms seem to have quite even a higher vibration of them because of where I think people sort of spend their time haunting rather than on the boards, as they say. So
the power can go out at the Pantages for a full week as they have to reset the whole building.
There you go. I said, did you remember? Yeah, really. We lost many days. Yeah, that was weird. I don't think those were ghosts, though, Steve. So.
Yeah. Now, speaking of ghosts, that's a great segue. You also worked with those most legendary of divas, Johnny and Baby, because you were part of one of the biggest films of the 80s and possibly the best-selling soundtrack of all time, apart from maybe Grease and The Bodyguard. They might compete. But, of course, I'm talking about Dirty Dancing. So, in your estimation, when listening to the soundtrack, how many babies have been conceived to it?
What a great question. Probably millions. I don't know, a lot. It's such a popular movie. I don't know. It's very possible that a whole generation has been conceived listening to that album. And that's a great question. It's certainly, when I die, they'll say he was the guy in Dirty Dancing, no matter what else I'll ever achieve in my life. But that's okay. Again, it gave, enormous pleasure to so many people, and still does 37 years later. It's just kind of crazy.
Yeah. Steve mentioned that you're working on sort of redeveloping the stage version.
I am, yeah, which started in Australia.
Yes, sorry about that.
Please don't. Why? Why are you sorry about that? Oh, you saw it. No, I'm kidding.
No, actually, I haven't. That's yeah. I just know it's a jukebox musical. That's all. So, but you've got the most iconic soundtrack ever. Why wouldn't you? That's why I'm torn.
I think people would miss the music that if we didn't use it.
Yes.
That said, we'll have some additional songs in the show written by, I can't tell you who, but someone very exciting.
Yep.
Who's writing new songs for us. Yep.
Is it Lin-Manuel Miranda?
It is definitely not Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Now I'm trying to picture Miranda songs in, was it 1950s?
63 is where it takes place, yeah.
63, yes. All right.
All right, well, we'll move on to the musical now, and I picked Merrily We Roll Along. I'll do the thing. So, Steve, I'm so sorry if Reed never gets another job in the industry again. Anyway, we're going to get into it. Thank you for coming on my show, Lonnie. It is truly such an honor. Before Merrily Rolling Along, I already knew of its favorite history.
I'm still in love with 9-year-old Debbie. That's just made my day. Welcome back to the second half of Talk Musicals to Me. I'm Caroline Sheen, and talking musicals to me today is Debbie Isitt. Debbie, thanks for coming back. Thanks for not running away. This question, it has interesting answers. Is there a musical that you would make compulsory on the school curriculum?
That is an interesting question, isn't it? Compulsory, you say?
That's the word I think that people are having difficulty with. Because, compulsory implies a sort of, you must do this, doesn't it? Doesn't that? You don't necessarily have to be on stage. But I guess maybe it's because I love it so much. I think everyone should experience doing it,
Oh, so they perform it, actually put it on rather than study it.
Yes. Oh, yeah. No, not studying. No.
Well, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it depends on the age of the children, I suppose. 9-year-old Debbie put on The Wizard of Oz with 9-year-old kids. That seemed to work. But, would that be so for Carousel, as we've already spoken about, with all its issues and, violence, domestic violence, all of those things? Would that be appropriate for 9-year-olds to put on? Probably not. Are we talking secondary school teenagers? Because it's about what interests them, ultimately, I think. What's on the curriculum needs to speak to them. So, I can imagine that in certain high schools, it would be brilliant to put on Hamilton because they love the music and the rap style, and it's like Shakespearean, but it's hip hop. And so that would be amazing. You know, I can see, although it's not a stage musical yet, the film The Greatest Showman, they would love to do that because it's about acceptance and inclusion, and the songs, you know, young people love the songs. They're great songs in the pop world, kind of. I think some of these musicals, they'd feel more able to perform well. When you go back to the legit musicals, and there's some very big singing to be done in some of those musicals, it gets a little bit trickier potentially. But Oliver's always a great one because there's kids and adults interacting together, and so many. I don't think I have a compulsory one because I feel like I'd like them to choose.
Yeah, so maybe give them a wider scope. I think it's just, isn't it? It's that idea of everyone having this massive shared experience.
Yeah, the opportunity to perform in a musical and share that together, putting a show on and understanding the messaging behind the show and what they're trying to achieve. I mean, you know, they're life skills, aren't they? It is teamwork. It is trust exercises. It is communication. It is talking freely about emotions in safe spaces. All of these things should be an inherent part of education. And obviously in the classroom, they're not necessarily a part of education. So it is in these extracurricular classes that these things are allowed to flourish. And that's why it's so terrifying when certain points decide that they're not important for the national curriculum. So yes, in that sense, absolutely advocate putting on plays, musicals, studying drama together, because it's just as important as sport. It's just as important as every other academic subject, if not more important, actually, because some people just can't relate to academia in the same way. So, you know, without those subjects, I think school can be a terrifying, isolating and stifling place. So absolutely agree that compulsory, yes, musicals, plays, theatre, literature, culture, art, all of those things, but perhaps not just one musical.
Have you ever thought of being Prime Minister, Debbie?
I've often wanted to run Disney. Is that the same thing?
Not far off.
These days, not too far off. I just really love and believe in the power of art in all its forms to transform lives, and beyond that, to save lives, really. I've always believed that a lonely, isolated person who's suffering from depression, anxiety, doesn't want to carry on living, only needs some community, a choir, you know, some way of expressing themselves through art to feel different about life. And I feel we can save each other through the art form and shared experiences. And I think that's why people do flock to the theatre, and they flock to musicals particularly because they do feed them. You do feel better when you leave than when you went most of the time, and you learn something about yourself, and you leave with hope often, you know, hope about the world you live in, and you recognise yourself, you recognise others. Theatre gives you empathy, it gives you understanding of the world, and it feeds you love. And we all need love in our hearts to get through each and every day. So yeah, it's a great job.
Absolutely. And you've had that experience recently, haven't you? Because we've been working on workshops of your next musical, Military Wives, the musical, based on the film of Military Wives, based on the Military Wives documentary of when Gareth Malone went and created a Military Wives choir, which is now nationwide. You went and met some of the women who did feel very isolated and joined the Military Wives choir, yeah?
Absolutely, and it really did change their lives. It was a lifeline for those women that were living in a very peculiar situation. When their husbands, the men, their partners, went off to Afghanistan, a lot of these women live in temporary accommodation on a patch, and they don't really get to know each other very well. And suddenly they're left alone or just with their children, and there's very little support for them. They don't get the money that the men are paid, obviously, to go to war. They live in very, very poor housing often. They're often moving around very quickly at short notice, so they don't have many possessions. So they live a poor lifestyle. And without something like that choir that Gareth Malone was a big part of, they have told me firsthand how bleak their lives were and how hopeless they often felt. And they live in fear during that time because they're always waiting for the phone call to hear that their loved one has been killed, or someone that they know has been killed. And it's a terrifying thing. So these women were able to come come together and make friends and feel empowered, feel useful, important, feel like they could express their deepest, darkest fears and anxieties through song. They could give each other hope. They could have a laugh. They could have a drink, a coffee, a chat. They could grow and just become different and feel more positive. And then when bad things did happen, they were there for each other. And it's completely transformed the lives of military wives up and down the country forever, I think, this movement. And I think that is a universal thing for anyone that feels isolated and lonely and unable to cope. I think things like choirs, community, drama groups, all of those things can be vital lifelines. And that's why I'm really excited to bring that Military Wives show to audiences, because it is an important message for everybody, really, not just for people in that particular situation.
I agree. We've got a family member who's grieving at the minute, and one of the first things she's done is she's looked up the choir that she wants to join, because she wants to feel that connection and you know, that shared experience and singing together. It just does something to your ears, and being all together as one doing something is just, you suddenly feel, I feel it like when we watch Gogglebox, you know, you're watching other people watching the television and they're saying the same things as you are, and suddenly you don't feel so alone. Your experiences are valid because they're being validated by someone else saying it on the telly. Absolutely brilliant. When it comes to going to the theatre and feeling better or changed when you leave, which theatrical experience have you been to where you left feeling like the most impacted and that made you look differently on life?
I think I've probably mentioned some of them already, in as much as Come From Away made me believe in human kindness again in a really meaningful way. In the darkest hour, that human kindness wins is such a big message, and I really did feel that. But then I felt impacted by Waitress. She Used to Be Mine song. I've never seen a standing ovation in the middle of a show before for a song, but it happened. Again, it was just so emotional that I think when I left the theatre, when I saw that show, it wasn't necessarily the whole show, but it was her and her story and her message and her triumphing over terrible adversity, domestic violence. It was so empowering. So I think for me, those are the stories when terrible things happen and people are just genuinely find a way through it. And songs are a part of that. Expression is a part of that. Sorry for the dog again.
That was Bo trying to sing She Used to Be Mine and show you that he could do it just as well.
Yeah. Oh, dear.
Brilliant. I think that's the thing, isn't it? The hope that something can give you when you leave a theatre, and that utter faith in humanity that Come From Away offers up on that stage, and the fact that you know it's true and you know it happened. I went on quite a deep dive after seeing Come From Away. There are some great documentaries about it that you can find on YouTube. I just sat there streaming with tears watching it, because the openness of that community and the fact that it reached those people. To probably say, if people haven't seen it, Come From Away is about a community in Canada, in Gander, where 38 planes had to land, emergency land, on 9/11, and the tiny community of something like 8,000 people had to take in another 7,000 or 8,000 people and find them, you know, lodgings, food, everything. And in that specific area, they've stayed in touch with the plane people and have had this musical written about them, and they set up this fund, and they now support that community through like a college fund, and they have scholarships, and it's wonderful to see out of something so awful as 9/11 something so positive coming out of it.
Yeah.
And you can watch it. It's not on tour here at the minute. I think it's on tour in the States, but you can actually, if you have Apple TV, you can watch. There was a pro version recorded on Apple TV, which is brilliant. It's most of the original cast, some of whom are actually from Newfoundland, so they have the genuine accent on there, and it's absolutely worth seeing. Is there a musical which has brought you close to saying, I'm never going to go watch a musical ever again, or, you know, I'm done? Which has brought you closest to that?
I haven't haven't ever seen a musical that's done that, I don't think, but I've heard a lot of songs in a lot of auditions where I've thought, if I ever hear that song again, I'm going to scream, pull my hair out, or that people start singing it and I go, no, I don't want to hear that song. I'm like Simon Cowell on X Factor or something. No, have you got another song? Because I've heard that 28 times this morning and it's only 10 a.m. Like, no, that happens a lot with children. Because when I'm auditioning children for Nativity, say, they will come in and I mean, I suppose that's where a lot of the Great Showman songs get sung, and that's lovely the first time, isn't it? And then by the 20th time, you're like, no, stop. Wicked, they come in and sing and I'm like, that's not going to go well. I know the note's coming, gravity, my goodness. So, there are songs that are sort of banned now, that I've banned from auditions.
You have to name them now, Debbie. You've said that now. You have to name them. For all of us that are going to come in and audition for you, what do you not want us to do?
No, I can't. I think you probably all know them. All you performers know them because you must know that you're all doing those songs. I can't name them. But I wanted to say something, Caroline. I wanted to say the other thing about musicals, about going to see musicals and circling back to the performers. The other thing that gives you hope and positive emotion when you see a musical, it is the talent, and it is worth repeating this. At the Olympic Games, you watch a sprinter or a javelin thrower and they get gold. You cry and you feel so emotional when you're backing them for whatever reason. And even if you're not, you just think, wow. Imagine the training that's gone into that. Imagine look how fit they are. This is their whole world. Every day they keep on training. They never give up training. It's a life's work. And look at what they've achieved, or a great goal at the Euros. All of these great sporting achievements. The joy that sport gives people when people win things and achieve the impossible, really, for humankind. That's how I and audiences feel when watching great performers, when listening to a great singer, when watching great dancing, choreography, great acting on stage. It's like, look what we are capable of as humans. We can express like this. We can hit that note. We can hold that note. We can make us feel like this. These people are amazing. And that means I'm amazing too, because we're humans. And it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Musicals only work because of musical performers, and those that are brilliant at it, again, they give us all hope, and it's amazing.
Oh, Debbie, I love that. It's not just the musical, it's the people that bring it to life. Because I guess you could see the same musical and it not have the impact because it hasn't got the caliber of performers in it potentially. Even still, I still think the effort is something to be inspired by as well.
Yes.
And I know it wasn't a musical, but I saw Mark Rylance in Jerusalem, and I remember watching him just thinking, I don't know how to do that. I could not believe that what was coming out of his mouth was not something that he had just thought of. He was transcendent. And at the end, I was just drained from everything he made me feel. Wonderful.
Isn't that a wonderful, wonderful experience? And isn't it a privilege then to witness these great moments of art and culture? It's just amazing.
Yeah, it's a privilege. And it feels like we're incredibly lucky to see that. I'm losing my thread with what questions I've got left. And this, like I've said with most questions, because we've been gabbing away, potentially has been answered already. What would you say is the secret to a good piece of musical theatre?
So I think there's lots of secrets. As we've said, it needs to have great music, of course. Great music, great songs. But the songs really need to serve the story. They need to come out of the story or feel like they're coming out of the story. It's an old cliche thing to say that you sing when you run out of words to speak. The music takes over because it's another level of emotion that makes you sing it rather than say it. And I think great musicals, you do feel like that you sing because it's too important, it's too rich just to say it. Words are cheap. It's emotion that we're feeding off. So in a way, subtext in the spoken word, in the book, is really important. It's what's going on under the words. It's the emotions we're feeling. It's what makes you say what you say. But when the subtext comes to the surface and becomes the text, that's the song. Songs don't need subtext, really. They work on their own. And so a good musical needs a great story that pushes into great songs. Obviously, that for me is the most important thing. After that, the dancing, the movement, the spectacle, all of that is bonus, to be honest. But something like, I don't know, a more stripped down, well, Come From Where we've talked about, arguably Dear Evan Hansen, something that's quite stripped down, quite bare in terms of it's not an all singing, all dancing, lots of costume changes, not too much dancing, I suppose. Those musicals can be just as entertaining, brilliant, moving, important, to me anyway. I often find them actually more moving because they're more direct somehow, the story to audience. More like a play with songs, I suppose, can sometimes be even more powerful. However, having said that, a great big showy musical like, I don't know, one of the old 42nd Street, say, I completely understand why audiences stand on their feet at the end of a show like that, because hundreds and hundreds of tap dancers on the stage, how did they get them all on there? Look at the costumes, look at the set design moving towards you. It's an incredible, awe-inspiring experience. And in the end, a musical needs to be itself, true to itself, just like a performer does. So what is your story? What is it about? What does that story need? Is it about putting on a big show on Broadway, or is it a story set in a small school? Like, whatever it is, it needs to serve itself and know itself and speak honestly.
I absolutely agree. All the time you were talking, I was thinking of that 9-year-old going, what did she do with the choreography? And what were the sets like? Did she paint them herself? What was Debbie doing in that lovely Wizard of Oz? Like, who was playing? Was somebody playing the piano for you?
I managed to get some backing tracks, and I can't even remember how I did it, but on an old cassette player, that they pumped through a speaker. So I remember we had backing tracks, and I think we did props, but we didn't really do set. There was no set really. It was props and costumes. I mean, the lion costume was amazing. I remember that. So I was quite jealous at that point because I already customized Dorothy and my cousin was the lion, and I was like, I should have gone lion. But anyway, and in a way, that poor theatre, that never left me either, really. Not for many, many years. I often worked without sets, and often believed that you could put a show on, and still do, that although sets are wonderful and can be part of the narrative and the language of the theatre, in the end, you should be able to go out onto the street and tell a story and make an audience listen to it. Because for me, it's about the performance, really, ultimately.
With your movies, with like Nativity and everything, I think you absolutely could do a movie about 9-year-old Debbie Isitt putting on Wizard of Oz. I would watch that all day, every day. The tenacity and the balls that you had to go around and tell all the parents to make a costume. It's made my day.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the balls word, because my daughter Sydney, who's grown up now, I said to her quite recently, I can't really cross my legs. I look at women particularly, like sitting with their leg crossed, and she said, no, Mum, that's because your balls are too big. So yeah, there you go.
There you go. And that's why you've got where you've got, Debbie. That's why you've got where you've got. Oh my God, I'm having such a great time. If you're having like a crap day and you've seen something that's made you lose a bit of hope in theatre or whatever's happened, is there something like a soundtrack you put on or a movie musical you go to or a ticket you buy to make yourself feel better about the state of the world? What musical would that be?
Oh my goodness, that's really got me. Yeah, I mean, I love them all. Like, I love them. I love theatre. I love musicals. Any soundtrack, I could stick on Wicked one day and Annie the next, and I'd sing my heart out, driving in the car. Like, I just love them, really, to be honest. And I like getting sad too. So I would put on that Waitress soundtrack just to sort of feel melancholy and have that emotional release as well. I don't know. Dear Evan Hansen. I like the new ones, I mean, I love the old-fashioned musicals, of course, but I love the new ones. I think we've been really, really lucky to have some great new musicals in recent years. I definitely stick on Standing at the Sky's Edge soundtrack, just because all of these musicals just make you feel something, take you out of yourself, take you out of your everyday, and make you feel emotional and therefore energized and different and transformed. Yeah, so I'm really sorry I'm not like so obsessed about one. I just think as a whole, musicals are like gold dust.
Well, this is called Talk Musicals to me, so you don't just have to talk about one. I'm loving how many we're referencing here, and that musicals are absolutely like gold dust. if I want a laugh, if I want to be cheered up, I will probably pop Nativity on. It's not just a Christmas thing for me. And the audition sequence where all those kids are standing on stage in front of Martin Freeman and doing their party tricks. And I never fail to snort with laughter watching those. Before we finish, tell me a bit about how you get those kids to do that. I mean, the little boy who just stands there and makes his face go red. I think the first time I saw that, I nearly fell off the bed.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually a dangerous trick. Don't try it at home. But the children really did, on the whole, come up with those things themselves. So he did. I mean, I asked him, obviously, before we filmed, do you have a special skill? And he said, I can make myself go red. I said, all right, then you do that when you go on. So it was these kind of conversations, and I'd say, do you know a song? Yeah, that. Oh, sing a little bit of it. Okay, you do that when you go on. So it was just really that simple, very, very simple. The children just did their thing. I know some moves. Do you? Okay, well, I don't need to see them now. You just do them out there. So we kept it really fresh so that all the reactions were fresh. It was all shot once. We didn't go back and reshoot it. I always use 2 cameras. So one on the kid, one on the reactions. So everything you see is exactly what you got. And that's what keeps it fun. And I think that's what enables you to watch it over and over again, because it's just happening in the moment. And so it keeps it fresh forever. There's no artifice there. There's no rehearsal involved. It is happening in the moment as if it was a documentary, really. So that's why it's winning. And I suppose they were all the age I was when I started. So I've been there. I said to them, I've been there. I know what it's like. Just go out and be yourself, have fun. Great working with kids. I absolutely love it. It's my favorite thing in the world, and the animals, of course.
What do you think makes them so brilliant to work with? The openness, the lack of inhibitions?
Yes, it's this thing. I mean, some of them do have inhibitions, but even that's adorable because they're shy. And I think it's this thing in my line of work, which is largely directing. It's obviously writing as well, but it's when I'm directing, I spend all of my time speaking to actors about being in the moment, and kids just are in the moment. This is the difference. They don't have to learn that, because we forget how to do it, and like you said, when you saw Mark Rylance, do it, you're like, but this is what we're meant to do as actors. We're meant to, if there's a script, learn the script so you know it inside out, then forget the script, forget the script, forget you've ever even heard of the script, so that when you're on stage, it's as if for the first time. That's the rule of acting. We're saying everything we say as if for the first time. With children, that's what they do. They just say it for the first time as if for the first time. They have no clue they have no clue about being trained or what they're doing there. Really, they don't know what they're doing. They're just being. They're being rather than doing. And this is the thing we're all seeking to achieve. So not only working with them is a joy, because I don't have to do my job so much because they're doing it for me, but also they're teaching all the grown-ups. As they're performing, the grown-ups are feeding off that. And they're like, oh, I see, they just did that without thinking about it. They just instinctively did that, or said that, or pulled that face. They hadn't rehearsed that or tried it in the mirror. They're just doing it. So that's what she means. She wants us just to do stuff, try stuff, fail, try, fail again. Doesn't matter. No, there's no rules here. We just get to be. Okay, great. So for me, that's the art of acting. So children can teach us all.
Deb, having been in the room with you and workshopped so much of your work, it is one of the most playful places I've ever been in a professional environment. And I think that it is always so satisfying, exhausting, absolutely exhausting, because you can't switch off because there is no script. So you don't know, you have to wait for someone to do their bit, and then you have to think about how to react. So you absolutely have to be in this moment. And to any actors out there listening to this who may be lucky enough to get the opportunity to be in a room with you, absolutely snap that opportunity up, because you will learn so much about yourself and about yourself as an actor and as a person and in the world. It's a really exciting space that you let us all into, and thoroughly enjoyable. Thank you, Debbie, for talking musicals to me today. I've had an absolute ball.
I can't think of anyone I'd rather talk musicals to than you. And the reason you've done so much of this work with me is because you're so brilliant at it, and you're such a pleasure to work with. You're always bring your A game, and your beautiful smile. Those two things are just amazing. So keep doing it, Caroline, because you are one of the most talented people I've ever work with, and you're just gorgeous.
We're having a massive love in here, and I'm here for it.
We are. Oh,
Thank you so much, Debbie, and best of luck with Military Wives coming up. And I think there's some other things going on with you as well, from what I've heard on the grapevine. So best of luck with everything you do. And you're an inspiration. The balls and the tenacity and the all-in work that you do is super exciting. And I just love it.
oh,
Thank you so much, Debbie, for sharing with us today.
thank you, Caroline.
Honestly, that 9-year-old story, that's made my day. Thank you so much for listening today. This has been Talk Musicals to Me for the Bloop Network. My fabulous producer is Aaron Ware, and the music you heard is from the pen of the sublime Tom Self. If you get a moment, please subscribe or follow and rate the podcast by clicking the stars below on the podcast page. It takes about 2 seconds to do, and it will really help the podcast and its future life, and would make us massively, eternally, enormously grateful. In the meantime, another huge thanks for tuning in, and please do so again next time to see who will be next up to Talk Musicals to Me.